Okay, I'm cool. Just let me share the screen. Can you see the screen? Just give me this 1 second. Okay, now I can see.
Yeah, it looks good. I can see it. Yeah.
Cool. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Sunjung. I'm in enablement group, and I'm a senior product designer working mostly for the geo and the distribution team. And today I would like to just share my experience, how I started to provide and getting the feedback asynchronously in the design review. So I remember, and actually I have checked my calendar when this conversation was happened. And actually it was happening on my day 1. So I was in the synchronous meeting with my engineering manager and the product manager in the geo team. And my first question was like, how would you like to try out the design review? Because that is most important like meetings that I would like to facilitate. And I asked them like, do you have any preference? And the engineering manager said like, hey, how about let's try this async design review because everyone preferred that way. And actually on that day, I couldn't understand what does that mean. I mean, really like literally, okay, asynchronously, okay, meaning like it's not synchronous meeting. And my immediate reaction was like, okay, well, this is my day 1 and it's harsh. Okay, so I just Google it and then now I understand. Okay, let me try that. So that was immediate reaction, and yeah, that was not professional, but I was really got shocked at first time. So this was the very first attempt at the time, and sorry about this poor design. If you see this, like, okay, this is one issue with one modal window, because I think this was the first bug that I ever found after I setting up the geo nodes on the primary, on the very first page. So we need to show this confirmation modal because it's a pretty critical action. So we would like to have this, but I think like the positioning was not right. So I found some front end bugs. So like, okay, this could be the proposed design and I would like to change this design. And I think it's pretty like solid solution. Yeah, why not? Let's just deliver this. So my thought process was like this. So I stopped your issues because it was just my like really like second week or the third week, I was still like overwhelmed by all our handbook and the markdown. So I stopped your issue. Thank you for that. And the second thing, of course, I did was opening an issue and put the spec link because we used Sketch at the time. And of course, I didn't know how to do next. So I just know that we use like @geo team. So I pinged the whole team and asked feedback. And after opening the issue, I got some of the feedback, and I know that like all geo teams people are very nice enough for the newbie like me, and probably she has a lot of questions, so we are happy to help you. And the actual time we took, like it was like 3 working days to get the answer just for this confirmation modal and the UI text there. And just for this design, I had to have a 2 times asynchronous, not asynchronous meeting, but a meeting with the product manager just to make sure like, how would I change this or not? How would I change the UI text or not? So I was like that. It was my month, the first month. And I got some feedback. I got some like direct feedback from engineer, and I got also feedback on the comment section that, okay, look, like the discussion scope is getting bigger and bigger. And the first screenshot here is the reaction that I got, like, here's how it works. And they started to like just send me the link of the Ruby code. Of course, I have no idea what does that mean, but they just started to share that like, actually, this is how this works. And maybe you can refer to this. And I was like, thank you, but it was really hard to follow up the Ruby code. And I got a really nice constructive feedback from others on the comment section. You can check the issue link down there that it's not easy to find your final proposal. And oh my God, I felt so bad. I'm a UX designer and I didn't thought about our team's usability and UX. Okay, that was bad. And I think this is the main question for the engineers because they have put a lot of knowledge that they have, and I was the newbie, and I think they wanted to know like how frequently this happens because I think they're maybe concerning about their efforts on this. Maybe she'll ping every design issue and then ask us maybe very basic or stupid question. I think maybe they're worried about that. So I was a bit like thinking phase, okay, it took a while than I thought. And okay, this is now my life. I have to keep everything, try to keep everything asynchronously. Okay, it's tough. And I had an idea though that okay, maybe it's better to share. Sorry, I think it's not the right context, but like, okay, maybe it's better to share my thought process, how I put this design and how I work. So I decided to create this, not the pretty illustration, but the first images that I put at the time. So I introduced team opening an issue. Okay, this is my design process and I need your input here and there, and I need your input. So maybe in the very early phase, I need this type of input, but if it is a very like before delivery phase, then I need also the other type of input. So I try to make it very clear what I want and what is my expectation and what is the next step. And I think we don't have this nicely illustrated process at the time. So I think that was the reason why I need to come up with my own poor illustration flow chart. But I think this would work, and this, and I hope this helps engineer to understand that, okay, maybe I can put this amount of time per week or per month for Sunjung to providing design feedback. So I think we're kind of slowly on the same phase. So this was my second attempt. I tried to just Google a lot and how can I get this feedback in a better way. And I think, so I'm dealing with engineers. So they are my target user, and just thinking about their characteristic, they want to have it something very specific. That's my understanding. That's my understanding from my partner who is a software engineer. And just based on my observation, okay, that's the thing. So I think the discussion goes wider and wider if I didn't provide any questions that, so I try to use this 4 question list. What do you like about? Do you have any idea to improve the design or this user flow? Or do you see any feasibility issue? And maybe just for an open-ended question, what wasn't clear for you? And before opening this issue, I'm still like, it was like month 2 for me. So I wasn't sure if I can open issue like this way. So I had a 2 synchronous meeting with the product manager and the engineering manager that, so I would like to open this type of design review issue. Do you think it would work for us or not? So I received their feedback before this, and also just slightly asked them, please, if I open this issue, please feel free to chime in and put your thoughts on this. And they did. And also at the same time, I pinged the whole team, the whole Geo team, and I used different channel on Slack. So it was our weekly stand-up channel at the time. And I kind of use it as an advertising channel that, hey, I'm working on this, but I need your feedback. And the due date is next week, something like this, so that everyone is aware of what I'm doing and it needs your input. And it's getting more fun. I think this is our 3rd or 4th design review, and I put my very first iteration, and I thought it looks okay. Maybe it's okay to go. And I was so happy that a lot of backend engineer actively joined the force. And hey, how about this? How about that? So I had to change the design like 3 times, but I was still happy because I could see the progress of my design. And the second screenshot is the final design at that time before delivery. And now we don't have to use this big comment line because now we have the design tab. So it's way more easier than before, but this was before the design tab release. So I had to use the comment thread. And sometimes I prefer to use Figma, and there was a big discussion in our growth fulfillment and enablement UX team meeting that like when to use Figma for receiving design feedback or when to use design tab, when do you prefer? So I think I use this Figma approach when I come up with a very initial draft for the global search team, because I really need some immediate change and immediate feedback from the engineer, because it looks like a high fidelity, but it's like a really low fidelity at that time, because this is one of the high fidelity screen at the time. And it has a really long user flow. So I prefer to use Figma at that time. But there are some cons that it's quite difficult to follow up all the discussion. And I think Mate once mentioned that it's kind of hard once it's resolved. We need to double check our email inbox. Maybe someone mentioned me or not, and it's not easy to find the resolved discussion on Figma. And a lot of notification that I got in email inbox, that was like really a wow. And some engineers confused because of they have a lot of emails from Figma because of my notification. So I think our team is doing quite okay. And this is my current practice. And I try to keep async design review on GitLab when it's mostly ready to deliver. And I love to use some question sets to narrow down the scope of discussion. And of course, I love to sometimes include one open-ended question for brainstorming or just getting their idea. And I think I tend to ping the whole engineering team and the technical writer, even if it doesn't include any UI text change. I sometimes feel sorry about that, but I feel like it's also worth to bring them in a very early phase before we release this feature. And I find it's also very worth to involve sales counterparts, because especially for the geo team, they need to know this, like what is happening on our geo world. So I and our product manager think it's really important to involve them also in our design review. Okay, this design will be released in some milestone. And of course, I'd love to do more design review on Figma, but I think it's more fit to very early stage. So in summary, like I'm not saying like this is the only way to do the design review, or okay, you can just use this tool whenever like you want, but I also love to have some synchronous meeting because it's also works for the brainstorming session or some workshop. I would like to have like both approach, but still I would love to improve my design like process, I would say, to getting more feedback from the engineering and product team, and also from you, that it's not a fixed thing. It could be evolved in a very continuous way. So thank you for your time, and I would love to get your input on it. Any questions?
Yeah, I do. I want to start with a comment. This was awesome. I enjoyed it so much. It was so deeply entertaining. Oh my God, this is my life now was really, really good. So thank you. This is very well done. Are other, and maybe this isn't a question for you, Sunjung, maybe this is a question for the group. Are other designers doing async reviews in this way?
maybe I'll stop sharing and yeah.
Yeah, so I can talk about that. I actually have a blog post coming out that talks exactly about what you're saying. And I think overall it's about communication and how can we communicate better asynchronously. And as designers, we have such a big challenge of trying to put everything we've thought about in small comments that people can digest easily and can react effectively, because we also don't want, as you said, like we don't want answers and feedback all over the place. We want people to give us feedback on exactly what we need. And sometimes things are out of scope and it's difficult to put all of that in one single comment. So I can definitely relate to your pains. It's something I've been through myself. And it's hard because it's, we've done all of the work, the design work, it's on our responsibility as designers and etc. But then when it comes to sharing that work and gathering feedback, it's like another task. It's like another thing. Okay, now I have to think and work how I'm going to prepare my message and my request for feedback in a way that is most efficient and most helpful and useful and also pleasing for others to consume and interact with. And it's exhausting. I agree with you. Yeah, so I can relate to a lot of that. And what I would say is, I think what you showed is like breaking up the request for feedback. Like, what did you like here? What did you like? You didn't like? What do you think are the technical constraints? So all of those questions and having threads for that, I thought that was amazing, and something that sometimes I also do. And also being clear about who do you want feedback from. So I think those two things alone go a long way in streamlining the conversation.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I love that you asked what needs to improve, because the implicit assumption there is you are telling them there's something in here that I know must be wrong. Please tell me. I'm inviting you to tell me what it is. And I think that is a really powerful way to get good feedback. This was real cool. I do have one last question. Okay, so it's from a Giphy. That was a great illustration. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. And one last comment would be, I think it's just like not sole designers' work. It's not the sole designer's task. Like, I think what we need to do is crafting beautiful UI and UX, of course. But I think what I feel like is a really team effort. I got support from the PM and also from the engineering manager. How can we like get better feedback? I mean, in terms of quality wise, because like engineers they're not expertise like us on the design area. And how can we like make them to talk more about like designers' perspective? It was the whole team's effort. And I think it also takes some time, and it would be more like practicing. And maybe we can have some like maturity level, because now I feel like their feedback is really great and it really changed my design in a good way. So I'd like to share my experience today. Thank you. Oh, I think we have more questions or?
Yeah, it looks like a couple questions were added, and I think it's okay to answer them. We're a little over, but we don't have a full set of sessions today. So let's just go through those questions. They're good ones.
Yeah, yeah, mine is really quick. I think it's more of a call to action, because I really loved how you went through all of this. And also I could feel your emotion, like as you were remembering what you were feeling at the time. And so that was both funny and and painful, but thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and so I think for me is what do you think we could take from your presentation, and what do you think you could integrate into our handbook and into the designer workflow? What is the smallest thing we could change there to make this better for current team members and future designers?
I have went through our handbook. Maybe we can mention like it's a team effort. Like I think we're missing that part. Like we can ask the product manager or engineers or engineering manager to support us to make our design better. Maybe we can add that. And also I'd like to highlight if we have some like very clear question sets. I think it depends on the situation though, but if we have a really clear expectation for feedback, then I think that it's reduce the time that we get feedback, because if that's the clear question, then they would love to jump in and yeah, it's A or maybe it's B. So I think that was really helpful for my experience. Does that answer your
I like
question?
the idea of having some example questions, even if they're just to spark the creativity that designers would then think, oh, okay, this question applies well to this feedback request, or maybe I can change this and apply it to this issue. I like that idea. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll just say in the handbook, there is a section that talks about collaborating with PMs and developers and soliciting feedback. So, but I love the idea of adding the specific questions to it because it makes it more actionable. So my request, and I think Jackie actually wrote that content, so she can work with you to help fold some of this into our existing content because I agree, it's really good.
I think the next question is from Mike.
Yeah. Hi, really great presentation. I'm wondering how early do you request feedback from other departments on the team? I think I heard you mention sales, and I'm also curious what other departments you loop into your reviews.
I personally ping sales and support team when it's like almost done. Not like I'm not going to invite them into my Figma and this is really like early brainstorming and could you give me some feedback? I would say it's just before the implementation phase.
I love that you're involving tech writing so early. And you made the comment, even when there's no UI text. Yeah, that's right, because even if there's no UI text, they still have to doc this thing. So the earlier you can let them know, the better. So bravo.
If we don't have more questions, then thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I'm going to